Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for LTMB Live. Let the Madness Begin. This is December 12th, 2019. We have a pretty good show for you today, in my opinion. We are broadcasting live on YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope Live. So thank you for everybody that's here with us tonight and everybody that joins along the way. Lot to talk about tonight. Insane Trump rally yesterday.
Are they ever not insane?
Yeah. Another. So I
call
say another insane Trump rally.
Propaganda tours.
Propaganda tour. You could say that. Also, the Trump impeachment proceedings are still going on right now. Started last night, and they are still debating the 2 articles of impeachment as we speak. Other things to talk about as well, and other things that obviously we won't have enough time to talk about. I did see some reports about what's going on in the UK, about some election results, about the Conservative Party supposedly having a huge win, and some over 300 seats they are going to get, something like that. So that's a win for Boris Johnson. I don't know what that means for the whole Brexit deal.
Oh, that was a scam.
Yeah, but
these mugs ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, we'll see. But anyway, of course, like we have been doing for some time now, we're going to begin with the impeachment proceedings. So last night on Wednesday night began the debate around the 2 articles of impeachment that have been drafted by the House Judiciary Committee. So last night was a very long process, and all they could get through was opening statements by all the committee members. They were able to get through all the opening statements. They didn't have any debate because they have, I think there's 40 committee members. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure the exact number, but something like 40 committee members. And so they had to wait to actually debate these articles and then present amendments. Of course, amendments are going to be proposed by the minority party, the Republican Party, and the majority party as well. But mostly were proposed by the minority party, the Republican Party, because they don't agree with the impeachment of Donald Trump. So they're going to do everything they can to really just extend this process out. So we're going to start with some opening statements from yesterday. And we have a few. So we're going to get through this and then go on to other things. It's a very long process. I have to say, it's tiring. It's very tiring because of all the testimony, all the comments from the committee members. It's very tiring. It's very, very tiring.
I don't think it would be tiring if there wasn't so much irrational pushback and kind of false outrage.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't be as tiring if it was just straightforward, but
false equivocation.
Yeah, so there's a lot of obstruction and a lot of tactics that Republicans are trying to use to derail this whole process that make it tiring. But
that's right.
Why would I expect something different?
Why would
I expect them to let this process go, like, I guess, uninterrupted?
Right. All right. So, anyway, let's begin. So, the first clip that we're going to show you is that of Hank Johnson, Representative Hank Johnson from the Democratic Party. And this is a clip of his opening statement.
While I didn't vote for President Trump, I respect the office that he holds. I didn't call for impeachment when the president shut down our government or tried to rip health care from those with pre-existing conditions, or embarrassed us on the world stage, or pardoned political cronies, or took money from our troops to fund his wall, or tore babies from their mothers at the border. I didn't call for his impeachment then, not because I supported this president's actions. I simply felt that impeachment should be reserved for moments when our democracy itself is in danger. When the sign says, in case of emergency, break glass, there better be one heck of an emergency. I did not call for impeachment before, but I call for impeachment today because this is one heck of an emergency. The facts are clear. President Trump undermined America's foreign policy to pursue what his own national security staff called a domestic political errand. And then he tried to cover it up. But fortunately, we the people are not as dumb as President Trump thinks we are. If you break the law and withhold documents, we know it's not because those documents make you look good. Maybe that's why more Americans support impeachment now than at any time since Richard Nixon's final weeks. I have constituents who remember what it's like to live in a democracy in name only. And they can tell you what it's like when powerful men undermine fair and free elections. They know our democratic process is fragile.
I believe our democracy was at stake before Donald Trump got into office.
Of course.
But I see where he's getting at. I don't think our elections are free and fair completely. That was the case before Donald Trump got into office. But I see where he's going. We don't need an individual as president who is essentially serves as the top executive in the country, creating a situation that undermines democracy further. I think that's the point. He has to kind of play that up. I understand
he's a
why
member of the Democratic
he's a member
Party.
of the Democratic Party, so I understand he has to play that up. So I understand why he has to do that, but I'm just trying to put in perspective here. We don't need somebody to make that worse. We already have a situation where individuals, citizens are disenfranchised every day.
Yes, and I agree with you. I don't believe we do have free and fair elections per se. Definitely free, fair, open elections would be to actually open elections to everybody and not make it so that you have to register for a party to actually,
primaries.
open primaries, stuff like that. That would be free and fair to me. Then, of course, we have other things as well. And this doesn't just concern the Democratic Party, but of course we have gerrymandering and we have ID laws and, a lot of different things that goes on in this society, which does not
the DNC's
promote
process,
a democracy.
the DNC's
Right.
process and how they choose their candidates.
Right.
I mean, the list goes on and
But
on.
I do agree with them, and I see where he's coming from because, especially if you harken back to the civil rights period, the mid 1900s, in which he was talking about his constituents can remember that period of time. Democracy, in that vein, was in name only. Really, I mean, it wasn't for everybody. At least the democracy that was established and what we still see right now, that wasn't even afforded to a certain section of people.
Because what he's talking about is checks and balances.
Right.
That's what he's talking about. Because one man, a president, should not be able to unilaterally shape the country according to his own personal needs. That's what we have here.
Right.
His own personal goals.
And the reason why he's saying that this is an emergency is because Donald Trump did try to cheat the system. And very openly as well. I mean, think about how brazen it was to do this one day after Mueller testified, and then to release the summary of the phone call that showed the words that he actually spoke to the president of Ukraine, Zelensky. And then after that, to claim that, yes, he wanted an investigation of the Bidens, and then proceeded to say that China should investigate them as well. So this is very brazen.
You know what he thought was going to happen? He thought he was just going to release those transcripts or the summary of the call, and everybody was going to be fine.
Yep.
And Democrats weren't going to look into it. But the investigation already started, and that wasn't enough. I don't think he thought it was going to go that far because the close proximity between the whistleblower complaint, the investigation being open, and then him releasing the aid. All those three things in close proximity tells me that Donald Trump didn't think it was going to go far.
Right.
Oh, I'll release the call. I'll release the call. Yeah. All right, there it is. You see, there's really nothing there. I'm like, but what about all this other stuff surrounding the call?
Right.
So.
All right, so now we're going to go to a clip of the Republican Representative Jim Jordan, the loudest dog that is on Team Trump, trying to defend him against these allegations. Representative Jordan is here claiming that the Democratic Party won't stop no matter what.
They're never going to stop. Congressman Green said yesterday, if the Senate doesn't convict, it will not end. This is not about Ukraine. Facts are on the president's side. Zelensky said he wasn't pressured. Ukrainians didn't even know aid was held at the time of the call. And most importantly, they did nothing to get the aid released. When we deposed Jim Comey in this committee last Congress, he said after 10 months of the FBI's investigation, they didn't have a thing. Comey gets fired on May 9, 2017. 8 days later, Bob Mueller gets hired, and we get 2 years of the Mueller investigation. 19 lawyers, 40 agents, 500 warrants, 2,800 subpoenas, but zero collusion. But Democrats don't care about the facts, and they're never going to stop.
I really don't even care to go into this again because this is just a replay of
It is.
Kind of the narrative he was pushing during the impeachment inquiry hearings. It's the same thing. He's probably just reading off the same script.
Oh, of course he is.
That almost sounded exactly like what he said during the impeachment inquiry hearings.
Right.
Exactly, in the same sequence.
He talks about those 4 things that have not changed, and he says this virtually every single time he gets to talk. He talks about these 4 things, and one of them, I believe, the last of the 4 things that he talks about is that the Ukrainians did nothing to get the aid released. And of course, every single time I hear that, see, I'm waiting on the Democratic Party. I'm waiting for somebody on the Democratic Party to follow that logic. Okay, yes, the Ukrainians did nothing to get the aid released. No official act, no anything. Okay, so by saying that, you would have to admit that it would have been a problem if they did. It would have been a problem if they announced the investigations. So if it's a problem that they would have announced the investigations, then it would have been a problem that Trump tried to get them to do it. I'm waiting on somebody to follow that logic, but I haven't heard it yet. And then the talk about after the firing of the former FBI Director James Comey, he says we get 2 years of Mueller, or 2 to 3 years of Mueller, and he suggests that that's because of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party did not open the Mueller investigation. They didn't start the Mueller investigation. There was only one political party that had the power to do that. That was the Republican Party.
Yeah, Rosenstein initiated the investigation, or at least initiated, I guess, the special counsel of Robert Mueller.
The Democrats had
nothing. And that was because he fired James Comey,
yes.
And then Donald Trump was very vocal as to why he did it. It didn't even seem like there was a valid reason, and the reasons that Trump gave were very spacious. So that did kind of put pressure on Rod Rosenstein. That put pressure on them to open the investigation. There was no pressure from Democrats. It was there was really not a lot of pressure from Democrats to open an investigation. Yeah, there was this narrative about the DNC hack and Russians and all this, but for the most part, if Donald Trump wouldn't have fired James Comey, we wouldn't be in this situation. If he wouldn't have tried to, I guess, influence Jeff Sessions, we wouldn't be here. Or we wouldn't have had the Mueller investigation, most likely. It was all because of Donald Trump.
If it's as he says so, or as he is suggesting, that I guess the Democratic Party has all of this influence, and not just only influence, they can influence the Republican Party to get things done, to do things. if that's true and they influenced them to start the Mueller investigation, then I don't see any reason why the Democratic Party they should be able to similarly get the Republican Party to jump on board impeachment as well if they have all this influence.
If they have all this influence. Yeah. And yeah, of course, Jim Jordan, regardless of whether I don't think he even read the Mueller report, but if he actually read the Mueller report, he would read about the 200 different contacts between individuals within Trump's campaign, Trump's transition team, with certain Russian officials or like people associated with Russia in some kind of way. When it says no collusion, they couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that there was like a coordinated effort.
Right.
Like the idea was that Trump and the Trump campaign knew that there was another country vying for his presidency, and they were just going to go along with it. That's still wrong, even if there was no coordinated effort that was shown to have happened, like something direct. But there was a lot of obstruction by Trump, so none of the information would be found out, including obstruction from individuals that ultimately got indicted, like Manafort. Manafort originally had a plea deal, but the plea deal was canceled when Mueller figured out that the information was not true that Manafort was offering. But if we're going to say that that investigation was fruitless, according to Jim Jordan, I think that's false, considering everything that came from it.
Yeah.
Considering that Flynn, Manafort, Papadopoulos, Gates, Vanderswan, and Stone and Pinedo, all those individuals got caught up in this. And they served time or they either are serving time. So to say that nothing came out of it, which he's kind of suggesting, is garbage.
All right. The next clip is Republican Representative Ken Buck, who has a warning for the Democratic Party.
At the end of the day, I want to invoke the words of my colleague from the Rules Committee, Congressman Alcee Hastings, who said during one debate with the majority's efforts that the majority's efforts would backfire. He said, "You will lose. This will cost you the majority next year, and some of you aren't going to be here in the next Congress. I hope you've had your fun." Well, I tell my colleagues, go ahead. Vote to impeach President Trump tomorrow. But when you walk out of this hearing room, call your freshman colleagues and tell them they're not coming back, and you hope they've had their fun. Say goodbye to your majority status, and please join us in January of 2021 when President Trump is inaugurated again.
Ooh, tough talk from Representative Ken Buck. I hope you've had your fun. Just, again, mimicking the words of Representative Alcee Hastings, I believe. I hope you've had your fun. Go ahead and impeach President Trump tomorrow. He means on Thursday. But you're going to pay for it. You're going to pay dearly, and you're not going to be here.
According to who, though? You see what I'm saying? Like, he's suggesting that, hey, your days are numbered if you go forth with this. So he's trying to, like I guess, scare them into thinking that, their seats are at stake. Not just their seats are at stake, because what is behind their seat being at stake is a voter. That's behind that, right?
Yeah.
So he's suggesting that people won't like it. Has that been the case over the past 2 years, though?
No, President Trump.
We're talking about election-wise, right?
Yes, but if we're talking about voters, if we're talking about support of Donald Trump, and look, again, you know how we feel about polls, and you do have to take them with a grain of salt. Now, when you have an abundance of polls, then an abundance of different polls as well, through not one but two, going on 3 years, and you see a decline in support of President Donald Trump. And then when you talk about impeachment as well, you see increased support of not only impeachment but removal of office. That kind of paints a story. So the whole notion that they're going to pay dearly if they go ahead and actually vote for impeachment, I don't think the facts actually support that.
Yeah, because
But good threat, I guess.
Yeah, because what's the narrative? Like, Democrats have been against Donald Trump the whole time, this whole presidency, and they're going to pay for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that hasn't played out like that when it comes to the ballot box.
Yeah, what happened last year? What happened in the midterms? You already knew. You already knew that the Democratic Party was against President Trump.
What happened to what's up with these governorships?
Whew, man.
Like 0 for 9 or some junk?
Wow. You had to go there. You had to go there, didn't you?
So if it's like that now, why would it be like that after impeachment? They're just trying to like do these little pump fakes.
Yeah, that's
like
what it
it's
is.
going to like psych these Democrats out. Like, what, they think they're not going to just go forth on Thursday? Here's what it is. They're scared. They're scared. It's one of those things where like a dog is woofing, a dog is barking. In this case, he's barking at the other party. But really, they don't want it to go there because then it would come to the Senate. They don't want to do this. You can tell they don't want to do this.
As much as they're poking their chest out, they don't actually want it to get.
Because everybody knows that they're not going to convict in the Senate. So why not just let the process go? Why not let this, why not let the impeachment proceed and just be like, hey, we don't care. No, we're not convicting. Just go about your business. See,
Yeah. Why the threats?
You already know how you're going to vote on this.
The threats are trying to get you to stop. The threats are trying to get Democratic politicians to stop dead in their tracks and not go about the business of impeaching Donald Trump. But if they're not scared of it, if they're not scared in any way, if they feel like the Democratic Party is going to bear the brunt of that decision and they're going to be penalized by not having their seats anymore.
If that's, he was just doing them a courtesy.
Oh,
That's what that was.
That was nobility.
He was looking out for the Democratic Party.
nobility. That's what I like in Ken Buck.
See how that doesn't make any sense? Mm-hmm. So are we to believe he's looking out for the Democratic Party? He's like, he wants to ensure the Democrats aren't hurt electorally. He's trying to look out for the Democratic Party.
Well, see, it's real. When you hear them say, "My friends on the other side of the aisle," see, he means it. He means it.
So that's one way it doesn't make sense. And the other way it doesn't make sense is the fact that they can just let the process go forth and just not convict. So why are they scared? It doesn't even make sense. No. They don't want to be put in that position, so where they have to go on the record in an impeachment process. If it goes to the Senate, obviously.
All right, so those are the few opening statements or the clips of the opening statements that were from Wednesday night. So we're gonna fast forward to today, Thursday, and like I said, I believe it's still going on right now. I don't believe it's come to an end, but we have what we have. We have a few clips for you from today's proceedings. Hold on. You know what? My fault. We do have one more. I thought we already showed it. We have one more from Wednesday. We have an opening statement from our Democratic Representative Cedric Richmond. And so in this clip, Representative Richmond is highlighting the fact that aid was delivered to Ukraine in 2017 and 2018, but then there was a problem in 2019.
President Trump sent roughly $250 million in military aid to Ukraine in 2017. No problem. He sent nearly $300 million in military aid in 2018. No problem. So what was the problem in 2019? He was behind in the polls to Joe Biden. Even Fox News polls showed he was losing. He panicked and he concocted this outlandish, corrupt conspiracy. He withheld congressionally approved military aid for Ukraine until Ukraine agreed to do him a personal favor. And that personal favor was to announce a bogus investigation against the very person beating him in the polls. You don't need Sherlock Holmes to figure this one out. We have the evidence. The transcript of the call is a crystal clear confession. His chief of staff, co-conspirator, admitted to it in the White House press briefing room. We have hours of testimony from State Department witnesses, confessions, admissions, witnesses, video. We have everything but DNA. What else do you need?
I like how he began.
Yeah, because how he began cuts through that narrative that Donald Trump has he's apprehensive about giving aid to certain countries or countries in general. He's
Especially
always
Ukraine.
especially Ukraine.
Right.
So that the commentary that he gave was supposed to cut through that narrative. Now it's not going to stop the Republicans from continuing to use that narrative, but it clearly cuts through that narrative.
Does anybody remember hearing about withheld aid, or even forget the possibility that it was withheld? We know that it was not withheld in 2017 and in 2018. But does anybody remember any type of debate, argument, any type of conversation about whether or not Ukraine should get the security assistance in 2017 or 2018? I don't remember Ukraine being addressed at all when it comes to security assistance in those previous 2 years.
It all of a sudden became a problem when Joe Biden announced he was running for president.
Yep.
And just so happens that 6 days later, Rudy Giuliani took another trip to Ukraine. Now he was already he was already setting that. He was already like his dealings in Ukraine were kind of already he already had dealings in Ukraine already.
Already knew Lev
Parnas and Igor Fruman.
Yeah.
So he already had contacts over there. But on July 25th is when Joe Biden announced he was running for president. And just 6 days later, your boy Giuliani goes over to Ukraine. That must be just a coincidence.
Ain't no damn coincidence.
And it's like I said, we'll say this over and over again. I think they jumped the gun.
They did.
Like, they were afraid of Joe Biden? I mean, maybe they just wanted him out of the way quick, but that just seems like 6 days,
So
6 days after he announced,
So
they
really
just...
what they did was they fell for the fake news. Because all the media is saying that Joe Biden, once he gets in, he's the front runner.
He's the front runner. He was Barack Obama's vice president.
The best chance at beating Donald Trump.
Best chance of beating Donald Trump.
So he fell for the fake news.
He fell for the fake news, man. That's crazy.
Damn. All right. So now we're going to get to Thursday's events. And again, I like Richmond. No problem. No problem, man. 2007, no problem.
Yeah, he was kind of animated, but animated like in a laid-back way.
Yeah. All right. So Thursday. Okay. So we're gonna go to Representative Matt Gaetz, and this is a Republican member of the House Judiciary Committee, and he Matt Gaetz gets himself into a little bit of trouble here. He kind of embarrasses his own self. He wants to talk about Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden. He begins talking about how, I guess, inappropriate, ridiculous it was for Burisma to think that Hunter Biden was a good addition to their board when he has had past troubles, and past troubles with drugs as well. So this is Matt Gaetz. You know what? And not only, he gets himself into trouble, and then what you're going to hear after he speaks is Democratic Representative Hank Johnson kind of suggesting how hypocritical it is for Matt Gaetz to talk on this issue.
I don't want to make light of anybody's substance abuse issues. I know the president's working real hard to solve those throughout the country, but it's a little hard to believe that Burisma hired Hunter Biden to resolve their international disputes when he could not resolve his own dispute with Hertz rental car over leaving cocaine and a crack pipe in the car. Again, not saying, not casting any judgment on any challenges someone goes through in their personal life, but it is just hard to believe that this was the guy wandering through homeless encampments buying crack that was worth $86,000 a month to Burisma Holding.
I would say that the pot calling the kettle black is not something that we should do. I don't know what members, if any, have had any problems with substance abuse, been busted in DUI. I don't know. But if I did, I wouldn't raise it against anyone on this committee. I don't think it's proper.
Yo, did you see Matt Gaetz? He's like, oh shit, he talking about me, dog. He talking about me.
Now, Representative Johnson knew exactly what he was doing.
Did you see the smirk on his face?
Yes.
He was being like real, like sarcastic and vague.
Yeah, very vague, very ambiguous, but obviously when you heard the audience, when you heard people that were, viewing these proceedings, when you heard some of them laugh,
they knew exactly.
They knew exactly what he was referring to. Now, a lot of people probably did not, because who knows all of these representatives' histories, right? But Representative Matt Gaetz does have a history. He has a lot of history.
Oh,
he has a lot of history, but
he's still a representative.
He's still a representative,
even though he has a history.
He has a history. So there was a time back in the day where Representative Matt Gaetz, who was not a representative at the time, but he was pulled over in his vehicle.
Right.
Which everybody gets pulled over in a vehicle. So I mean, that can't be nothing wrong with that, right? But he was charged with the DUI. And here's his little arrest photo here, his little booking photo. But yes, this was 2008. 2008. So
I mean,
11 years ago.
Well, I mean, since he can't be responsible.
Yeah.
And he drinks and drives.
Exactly.
Meaning he's a harm to the community. Mm-hmm. How can he, as a representative, serve the same community?
What's the chances that somebody like him can be a or could be tasked with being a representative?
He obviously doesn't make good decisions.
No,
so how can he make good decisions for the people he represents? You see how dumb that would sound?
Right.
People make mistakes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Again, he's made a lot of them. He has a checkered past.
So I mean, people do make mistakes. I know people who have DUIs. They make mistakes, and they for the most part they have their heads on straight. They're responsible people for the most part. They keep a regular job and whatnot. But sometimes they make a mistake. Yeah. But they bounce back. It doesn't mean everything in their life is in shambles. It doesn't mean they don't have other skills. Right. It doesn't mean that they cannot live a productive life.
But see, I think we're being a little bit too hard on him, because he did say he doesn't want to cast any aspersions on people that go through these difficulties.
But he was casting aspersions.
He was.
I mean,
he's kind of like Trump then. Because just like Trump told Sondland, I want no quid pro quo, but then tells Zelensky he has to do this. He has to go to a microphone. Matt Gaetz is saying that, look. I don't want to cast any aspersions. I just want to say that Burisma shouldn't hire this guy that has had crack and cocaine in his past. That's all I'm saying.
Again, that has no place here. I mean, that's a conversation we can have in general, but to make that the central piece of your defense of Trump, it's kind of it's just lame. Yeah. Hey, this company, they shouldn't have hired this guy. Look at all the problems this guy had. How dare this company hire this guy? I'm like, yeah. That happens, and when people are in a privileged state like Hunter Biden, they get things that they shouldn't get.
Basically, he's not the guy to sell that.
Yeah,
if somebody wants to sell that, okay.
They get jobs that they shouldn't get. They have opportunities that we don't have. In our economic status. Mm-hmm. His father was vice president. Mm-hmm. His family has money. So yeah, it happens. But I don't think that's a conversation that doesn't belong here.
It's ridiculous. And again, he got embarrassed because of it. So next we're going to go to Democratic Representative Zoe Lofgren, who brings up a comparison. Because, of course, Republicans nowadays, in 2019, they are emphatically against impeaching this president and removing him from office. But they were on board with impeaching and possibly removing President Clinton from office in the 90s. And so Representative Lofgren just points out a kind of hilarious point here.
I would just like to note that the argument that somehow lying about a sexual affair is an abuse of presidential power, but the misuse of presidential power to get a benefit somehow doesn't matter. If it's lying about sex, we could put Stormy Daniels' case ahead of us. We don't believe that's a high crime and
Gentlewoman,
misdemeanor.
yield.
No, and it is not before us, and it should not be for us, because it's not an abuse of presidential power. I yield back.
Actually, we can go like further than Bill Clinton, or way after Bill Clinton. We can go to 2016, where Republicans were saying that they were going to impeach Hillary Clinton if she got elected. You can go watch. I think it's McCall. I think his Republican last name is McCall. He was on Fox News talking about how they were going to impeach Hillary Clinton if she won. There was multiple Republicans saying that they were going to open investigations as soon as she became president, because again, they had control over the House. They were going to investigate her entire presidency. They said this. So this whole notion that that Donald Trump is being unfairly targeted and they wanted him gone this whole time, and it's just unfair that they're impeaching him and investigating him and all this stuff. Again, this is just feigned outrage, because they were going to investigate Hillary Clinton if she became president. And they actually investigated her even though she didn't become president. They reopened the investigation into her emails. They reopened Clinton Foundation investigations. They even looked into Uranium One as well.
That's true.
So they looked into like 3 different things, even though she wasn't president. So I can go. I don't even got to go back that far. I don't even got to go back to Bill Clinton.
Yeah, I mean, look, they don't care about hypocrisy. They absolutely do not. They entertain the prospect of impeaching former President Barack Obama a few times as well. I mean, you can go back and look at that as well. So, I mean, again, hypocrisy means nothing to them, but I do take Representative Lofgren's point, because ultimately, former President Bill Clinton was impeached because he lied to a grand jury about a sexual encounter with Monica Lewinsky. They were trying to get him for other things. Whitewater, I believe it was. Was it? Yeah, no, it was a.
That was no. What happened was they opened up.
That's how it started.
That's how it started, because they looked into it. That's
yeah.
It wasn't.
But they were trying to get him for other things, but ultimately they weren't able to. They came across this affair because of another. Somebody else saying things about former President Bill Clinton, and so they came upon Monica Lewinsky, and that's how they got started. But again, it was about some sexual encounter, and he lied about it. Now, after Representative Zoe Lofgren spoke, the Republican representative Sensenbrenner, he came to say that, well, hey, what Bill Clinton did was actually a crime because he lied under oath. He lied to a grand jury, which is true, and that is a crime. That's against the law, no doubt. But does that warrant impeachment? Ultimately, he lied about a sexual encounter. He didn't want nobody to know about it. He wasn't going to say. He wasn't going to be honest. Now, it was definitely the wrong thing to do. Actually, his actions were the wrong thing to do. But is that something that he should have been impeached over? So for all the Republicans that were so supportive of that action, but here you have a president that is actually misusing his office.
It's supposed to be high crimes
to
and misdemeanors.
extort another country and to aid his reelection. You have no problem with that, but Bill Clinton, oh yeah, those are high crimes and misdemeanors.
Yeah, and this is not about like defending Bill Clinton, defending Barack Obama, or defending Hillary Clinton. It's just to provide some sort of reference or comparison so that we can give context to these arguments that Republicans are offering, and just to show how disingenuous they are.
It was funny that she brought up Stormy Daniels, though. That was funny.
They opened that door.
They did open the door.
They opened that door because he essentially committed a campaign finance violation.
He did.
So information about his sexual behavior wouldn't be revealed. Mm-hmm. Bill Clinton didn't do that.
Mm-hmm. All right, so next clip, we're going to hear again from Republican Representative Matt Gaetz, and he offers a rationale as to why the aid was withheld in the first place.
There were 5 meetings that we have detailed that show why the aid was released. There was a belief on the administration previously that Ukraine was one of the most corrupt countries in the world, that they had not engaged in sufficient reforms. And after a number of events with the vice president, with a bipartisan Senate delegation, there was a resolution of that aid.
Now, before we even begin any commentary, there was a pushback on that narrative, and it was by Representative Jayapal. And again, she pushes back by, I believe she highlights the aid that was delivered in the past years as well.
In response to my colleague from Florida, you cannot argue things both ways. You cannot say that the president was so concerned about Ukraine that he released aid, which is true. He released aid in 2017, he released aid in 2018, and then suddenly he became concerned in 2019, right after Vice President Biden announced that he was going to run. So if your argument is that he was so concerned about Ukraine that he released aid in 2017 and 2018, then why in 2019, after the Department of Defense cleared Ukraine on charges of corruption, why then did he decide he was so concerned about corruption that he was not going to release aid?
Because
that makes, I'm sorry, I'm not yielding. I am not yielding. I am not yielding.
They got a new president. That's why.
The gentlelady has the time. The committee will be in order, and people will not interrupt.
They got a new president who was
not proper here.
Thank you, Mr.
Gentlelady
Chairman.
will continue.
They got a new president who was known to be an anti-corruption fighter. So that argument has no weight whatsoever.
Yo. See, you see what happens when you interrupt? I liked what she did there, because usually these interruptions are ignored. But she was like, okay, if you're going to interrupt, I will take that argument and smash it. And I like what she did. And it's weird how Republicans are essentially throwing Zelensky under the bus here, right? That's what they're essentially doing. Oh, they got a new president. What does that mean?
And that was Representative Jim Jordan that shouted that out.
So what does that mean? They got a new president. Okay, so what does that mean? That means, like, all of a sudden, the entire system is corrupt? This one president changes the angle of foreign aid now? This one guy getting elected? It would take more than that. It would take more than one person having that position to all of a sudden cause President Trump to hold aid. Like, realistically, if he had some sort of suspicion that the whole system was corrupt, right? You wouldn't just, like, rely upon, like, your, I guess, judgment about Zelensky alone. You wouldn't just judge Zelensky alone.
But see, the fact is that Zelensky ran as a reformer. He ran as somebody that was going to clean up the system. He ran as somebody he ran on anti-corruption. That's what he ran on. Now, it's very interesting that Representatives Gates and Jim Jordan, they're saying that, well, the aid was released because, after significant meetings, there were 5 meetings or whatever, not just with Trump, not just conversations, but I guess meetings and conversations. And so through the course of that time, they were able to get a good read on Zelensky and understand that he actually was a reformer. Now, the Pentagon and the State Department had already certified, and I believe that was back in May, that Ukraine had made enough moves. They had made significant anti-corruption moves, and that the congressionally approved aid should be routed. They had no problem with it being routed to Ukraine. Now, think about this logic again that Jim Jordan threw out there. We got a new president. That's why it was withheld. So I've heard that Poroshenko was corrupt. That was the previous president. I've heard from conservatives that Poroshenko was corrupt, an oligarch.
I mean, the president before Zelensky.
The president before Zelensky. So in 2017 and 2018, when the money was delivered from the United States to Ukraine under Poroshenko, who is corrupt, conservatives offer this. Now you have a reformer that's stepping into office. And you have to, that doesn't even make sense. You have to see if he's actually reformed. You didn't mind that there was a corrupt guy in office the 2 years prior, but now you care? No, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The only thing that makes sense is that there was something else that was motivating you.
And also, if your motivations were pure, then you would be up front, right? And you would coordinate with the Ukrainian government.
Yep.
That's what you would do. If that's the argument they're offering, Trump would coordinate with the Ukrainian government to see that maybe some anti-corruption efforts are implemented somehow. Some sort of anti-corruption strategy, whatever, legislation, whatever, some sort of structural reform, whatever. But that wasn't the case. If he truly felt that way, and if it was an actual legitimate reason for withholding the aid, that would have been okay. That would have been okay. I would have had no problem with that if he kind of pointed to something and he said, hey, I don't really like this. These things, this is what I see, and this needs to change. And if he did that out in the open, that would have been fine. He informed Congress. He's like, yeah, I know this has been approved, but hey, I have some information that maybe y'all don't have.
Yeah, well, he would have at least had to been upfront with the State Department and the Pentagon, but he wasn't. They didn't even know what was going on.
And guess what? That would be something that they would probably be interested in. You see what I'm saying? I don't think they would probably be interested in that. Like, wait a second, we didn't see this.
We already certified that they made significant moves. So tell us something that we don't know.
Yo. Your boy, Trump, he could have looked like the hero. Again, if it was legitimate and Trump had an opportunity to look like the hero, then he would have. Because that would have been a situation where he looked like the hero if he actually found something that our Department of Defense didn't, that the Pentagon didn't, that Congress overlooked. Trump saw it, and he took care of it.
That's a win.
That doesn't make sense. That would have been a win, but this wasn't about some sort of, legitimate agenda to tackle corruption in Ukraine. It wasn't about that.
All right, so the next clip is from Democratic Representative Veronica Escobar, and she provides another example of what President Trump did, a comparison.
Let's bring it down to an example that was used during the hearing. If a governor, if a community suffers a natural disaster, and the governor of the state has aid that will help that community, but calls the mayor of your community and says, I want you to do me a favor though, and conditions with giving the aid to the community on the police chief smearing his political opponent, has there been a crime? The answer is yes. And that governor would go to jail. If that governor later releases the aid after he got caught, it doesn't matter. He still committed the crime.
Now this is, it's really unfortunate that these examples have to be provided this much. We've provided examples. We've heard them in Congress. We've heard them during these hearings. It's really getting old because it's so simplistic. Again, this whole case here, this whole scandal, this controversy, this impeachment proceeding, it's not actually complex. We've talked about that it's only complex because of the Republican obstructionism. We've talked about that it's complex because of the reasons, the defense strategies that Republicans have given. That makes it complex, but the actual details of what actually happened is not complex whatsoever. So it's again, she makes it so plain as day that yes, I mean, if somebody was to use their power, their official powers that was handed to them in an election, all right, they're supposed to be representative of the people. And if they use that power to then get something that is advantageous to them personally, then that's going to be a crime. That's extortion. We can't have that. We can't have that in our system of government. Now, of course, there are other abuses that we can talk about. There's so many different abuses, but this is the one we have before us right now.
I heard
and
that,
it's a clear case.
I heard that analogy before. I'm not sure who used it. It may have been during the impeachment inquiry hearings. But I'm glad that, she issued that analogy. And it was a domestic analogy. She tied it to domestic aid. And if something similar would have occurred, then it would be wrong.
Of course
it would be seen as wrong.
Would anybody say that it wasn't wrong? Would anybody say that?
Illegal. Not just wrong, criminal and illegal.
All right. So the next clip we have is again from Republican committee member Ken Buck. And he is not directly responding to Representative Escobar, but he is responding to the idea that she is presenting. And really, he has a problem with the notion that the Bidens were being smeared, or there was an effort to smear either Joe Biden or his son Hunter Biden.
I think that it is unfortunate when the gentleman from Rhode Island talks about the president sending Mr. Giuliani to the Ukraine to smear Vice President Biden. Let's talk about what Vice President Biden did. His son sat on a board and made an outrageous amount of money for someone that had no background in energy, no background in the Ukraine, while his father was the vice president. If that is not a fair topic for discussion in the world of politics, I don't know what is. Smearing is trying to conjure up false information or making a vague argument based on false information. This isn't smearing. This is seeking the truth about corruption.
This dude, he makes a good point, actually. He makes a good point. He says that talking about the Bidens, talking about the corruption and whether it was ethical for Hunter Biden to have that position, getting paid thousands of dollars each tens of thousands of dollars each month, and how that was inappropriate. He said it was a fair topic of discussion in the world of politics, and I tend to agree with him.
No doubt.
But I also tend to agree that talking about, President Trump's kids in lieu of that conversation as well, talking about Ivanka Trump's her
trade deals,
her contracts that she has in China. I think that's a relevant. The trademarks that she has. I think those are relevant issues to talk about in the world of politics as well. But those things, again, are political. If you wanted to talk about them on the campaign trail, if you wanted to talk about that to aid your reelection, that's cool.
Smear away.
Draft these ads, show them on Twitter, Facebook, pay for ads on television, print, whatever you want. But when it comes to using your office, using your power to initiate a plan to dig up some dirt on a political rival
in exchange
for whatever, a meeting at the White House or some or a security assistance, then we have a problem. And again, this was to a foreign country. President Trump solicited the services of a foreign country, which is illegal. That is the crime. A lot of people are saying there's no crime here. There's no crime here. You can't. You don't have the goods on bribery. You don't have the goods. It's a crime. It's an established crime to solicit the services of a foreign country to aid your election attempts.
Did he have to go through all of this to highlight Hunter Biden and what Hunter Biden did, or the job he ultimately got hired for at Burisma? Did he have to go through all this to do that? No. So I don't even, if it's just a topic of discussion politically, then
it's fair.
It's fair. Yeah. Trump could have been tweeting about it every day. Trump could have been in the news talking about it every day.
Just like my man Cedric Richmond. No problem. Straight up.
Since we're talking about he's talking about smearing. Well, what was the purpose of smearing Ivanovich? What did she do? What did she do? What was she guilty of? You could talk about Hunter Biden without creating a back channel using Rudy Giuliani and two goons to smear a diplomat. What does that have to do with that discussion? Nothing. That discussion can be had.
Actually, he could have gotten Rudy Giuliani, personal, U.S. private citizen, Rudy Giuliani to go to Ukraine and try to dig up whatever he wanted to. Personal, private citizen, your personal attorney. If you want to send him to do whatever he wants to do in Ukraine, cool. Come back and give you some details, cool. That's not the same thing that happened though. You talk to the president of another country to get his services. You wanted to solicit his services to aid your re-election attempt. That is illegal. That is the problem we have today. So again, I've said before that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, especially the conflict of interest, which it definitely does look like a conflict of interest because Joe Biden was the point man concerning Ukraine. And he delivered that ultimatum, hey, either fire Shokin or you're not getting the money. I don't think it was the right look. I definitely think it was a conflict of interest because of Joe Biden being that point person, the vice president of the United States, and Hunter Biden being on the board of Burisma. We can talk about that all day. We can talk about his son seemingly profiting off of his father's status as the vice president of the United States. We can talk about that all day. It doesn't make me comfortable. I think it is corruption. It looks like legal corruption, but we can talk about that all day. You can use it to aid your re-election. Do it. Nobody's going to say anything about it.
Again,
but the way that you did it was illegal.
We talk about President Donald Trump jumping the gun in regard to Biden, right? Jumping the gun. And I say jumping the gun, it kind of suggests that he should have waited to do this. But I'm not saying if he was going to do it, he should have waited. But the problem with him doing it, as we stated before, was that how do we know that Joe Biden was going to be the Democratic nominee? One.
It's just a presumption.
That's a presumption. There's a presumption. Then, as we just stated, you could still use this situation in your campaign against Joe Biden. You could still, even though it would be hypocritical, even though it would be the pot calling the kettle black, regardless, it could have still been a political conversation. You could have still used it to smear Joe Biden without going about it this way. That tells me Joe Biden was just kind of like a pawn in all this. It was probably greater than just Joe Biden. I think we are focusing not necessarily on the wrong thing, but just focusing on one thing too much. It has to be bigger than Joe Biden. Joe Biden is just a pawn because it doesn't make sense. Because he could have just smeared Joe Biden. He could have brought up Hunter Biden during the campaign without going through all this, without actually holding the aid.
But think about his history, though. Think about Trump's history. In 2016, when he was running for president of the United States, there was somebody he was running against that was being investigated. There was an investigation that was reopened on his political challenger, his political opponent. In 2016, Hillary Clinton, the reopening of the FBI investigation, that was announced about 2 weeks before the election. And so many people have stated before that could have only hurt it. That could have only hurt her. I believe it could have only hurt her as well. That's why we never bought into the idea that Jim Comey was on her side and he was actually working. Like, that didn't make sense, whatever. Now, you could say that because we had our feelings about the statement he made after the investigation was shut down, and the comments he made about, hey, if this was anybody else, there would be repercussions and this and that. And so we were, hey, okay, so I guess if your name's Clinton, there's no repercussions. We never suggested that there should be jail time because there was nothing to suggest.
She would I think the most that could have happened was like a fine and losing a security clearance,
right?
And like 30 days in jail, but that would never happen.
No,
usually it's like some sort of probation, loses their security clearance, and a fine. So she wouldn't have gone to jail.
Yeah,
and we wanted that at least.
True. But so again, he knows about the possibility that somebody being under investigation helps his candidacy. So if there's an announcement of an investigation of Joe Biden, who obviously he considers his primary candidate and who will be the Democratic nominee, I mean, I think wisdom suggests that, he was doing this to aid his own reelection. Come on.
His own reelection and kind of send a message to Ukraine and the Ukrainian president that, look, we can hold aid over you if you don't do other things, because we already know that Donald Trump as well as Rudy Giuliani, they have personal dealings in Ukraine. So I think it's way bigger than Joe Biden. Joe Biden was just a pawn.
And so now this last clip that we have is from Democratic Representative Zoe Lofgren, and she is also saying some of the same things we talked about, in which if you did want to talk about Hunter Biden, fine. If you want to talk about Trump's kids, fine.
You know, there are issues for the election, and then there are issues for this committee. The behavior of Vice President Biden's son, and frankly, the behavior of President Trump's two sons and daughter may be discussed in the election. But here, we're talking about the abuse of presidential authority. The president must take care that the laws be faithfully executed. We know from the emails from the State Department to the Department of Defense that the Ukrainians knew that the aid was being withheld. That's documentary evidence. We also know that whatever was going on that people might not like with the vice president's son and the vice president, that was known in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. It wasn't until Vice President Biden was beating President Trump in the polls that this issue was raised to try and force a foreign country to invent an investigation to be used politically. That is not seeing that the laws are faithfully executed. That is an abuse of presidential authority.
That should end it right there.
It should end
and
it
like
right there.
I'm glad they're taking it there. Like, okay, yeah, we could talk about that. That's a political discussion,
and it's worthy of discussion.
And it's worthy of discussion. And not only is it worthy of discussion, like we said before, no one would like. They wouldn't. No one like that. That's not something that you can prevent. That's not a topic you can prevent from being out in the open. He has the power to do that. He is the president. He is the president.
And he's able to use that in campaigns.
He's able to use that in campaigns in general. So that tells me that like
he wanted something more than just campaign material that was produced.
Because it still could have been used as campaign material.
He wanted something more, man.
It doesn't even make sense.
An announcement of an investigation that he didn't start, now that would be something.
That would be something. That would be something. Because if he's not gonna it's not gonna mean much if he said, "Hey,
yeah,
I'm announcing this investigation."
That would mean nothing.
That would not only would it mean nothing, he knew it would be fake because it wouldn't go anywhere because there would be no investigation.
Whether he did it or his DOJ did it, it still would be seen as the same thing. That's why he didn't go to his DOJ. He went to Ukraine in a back doorway. Come on, man. So like that's all the clips that we have from these proceedings these last few days. We're recording right now, so I don't know if it has ended, if it has come to an end, or if it has come to an end yet. I believe it's supposed to come to a vote tonight. I believe. We'll see if they have time for that. But then I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow or next week where there's going to be, I guess, possibly a full vote of the House of Representatives voting on impeachment. I'm not quite sure if it's going to happen next week or not. I'm not sure. Actually, there is some thought that this could be put on hold for a second because, and we talked about this on the last show as well, the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell. There seems to be some type of disagreement, at least it's reported that there's a disagreement between the way he wants things to go and the way that President Trump wants things to go. I'm not sure if this is real or not. But it's being reported that McConnell wants something real quick. Okay, maybe 10 days, something like I'm not sure, but something real quick. Trump wants to kind of play it out. He wants the spectacle of it, this and that. He wants to use it to aid his campaign, his reelection. Again, I'm not sure how accurate this is, but McConnell and other Senate Republicans seem to be concerned that if it does go on for quite a while, then it will go to a back and forth when when it concerning witnesses. So if there are going to be witnesses that the Republican Party calls, well, of course, there's going to be Democratic witnesses as well. And so we don't know who those witnesses will be. Could it be somebody like John Bolton? Could it be Kupperman, who was his deputy?
So they could be setting themselves up, and he knows it. This is why Republicans are scared.
Yes.
They don't know what witnesses are going to be available, and if there are certain key witnesses available that shed more light onto the situation, that spells doom for Donald Trump and the Republican Party in the 2020 election.
So, again, what we're hearing, or what I've heard, or what I've read, is that it's possible that the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, may use this as leverage, because this is really the only time that she will have it, to kind of form the structure of what the Senate trial will be. Because if they go ahead with the vote and just pass it off to the Senate, then all bets are off. I mean, the Senate Republicans can do whatever they want. They can keep it very short. They don't have to call any witnesses. And in that regard, that, of course, that's not going to be, that's definitely not what the Democratic Party is going to want. And similarly, I don't think that's what the American people are going to want either. At least most of them are not going to want that. And I would even have to think that people that are supportive of Donald Trump, they want it proven. They want it proven that he didn't do anything wrong. Like, this was good. Like, everything was good here. Would they really be like, oh, no, we shouldn't hear from we shouldn't hear from them. We shouldn't hear what Bolton has to say.
They don't want it. I don't think, see, when you're talking about they want it proven.
I'm not talking about his base. I'm not talking about his base. His hardcore base just wants it gone. They don't care if they hear from the witnesses. I'm talking about even moderate Republicans that are still with President Donald Trump. There's something here that is uncomfortable with a lot of people that are even still supporting President Trump. So do they want this to be a sham of a process, or would you actually like to see a little bit of testimony? I think the Senate Republicans are scared either way. So I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll see how this plays out, of course. Also yesterday, and we're not going to spend a lot of time with this, but there was a hearing in the Senate Judiciary Committee. And that Senate committee is chaired by Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. And so who they had before them speaking is the IG, Inspector General Michael Horowitz. And so this is, of course, about the IG report. The IG report about the FBI investigation into the Trump campaign and about FISA abuse, this and that, whether the Trump campaign was spied on, this and that. And we talked a little bit about that on Tuesday, and ultimately the report, which was, I think it was over 400 pages now. I think it's over 400 pages.
Yeah, I didn't read much of it.
No. But it ultimately concluded that there was no political bias to start the investigation by the FBI. There was no political bias. There was some abuses that were highlighted by maybe some
administrative abuses and some clerical abuses.
Right. Especially dealing with the FISA.
Yeah, that were done in order to, I guess, fast track certain applications, things that were left out, things that were not included, certain things that were included that weren't necessarily accurate, to actually cut corners to get this application approved for a FISA warrant. But ultimately, the narrative about Donald Trump's campaign being spied on and it being politically motivated was not true. And if we're talking about those FISA warrants or that FISA applications, like it was like one, was it one or two?
It might have been one or two.
But it was like, and how long do those like applications like last? Or no, I'm sorry, like when they granted a warrant, they have to renew them like every.
I think like every half year, 6 months.
Every 6 months.
Right.
It was like the third one. So if you're talking about how the investigation initiated and the initial FISA warrants, those they found no problem with those warrants or those applications.
Yeah, to begin with, no problem.
And of course, since they expire every 6 months, in this case, There was FBI agent or employee or agents
I don't know.
that cut corners in one of the applications in order to get it kind of re-upped, reapproved.
Right. And this was at the point where, and this is where Republicans are very upset. What seemed to happen is that the FISA court was misled. And so I can understand that people are upset. And it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, a Democrat, liberal, conservative. If it deals with the, FBI investigations, the FISA court, spying on an American citizen and monitoring an American citizen. If something inappropriate was done, then yeah, I mean, I don't think it's inappropriate for anybody to be upset with that and want to see some reform. But it doesn't mean that the start of the investigation was inappropriate or had political bias to it. Now, Michael Horowitz, when he was testifying, he made that case. And of course, we saw that in the report as well. Really, the only thing that came out of the testimony, I think, is that fact that, yes, he confirmed that there was no political bias to start the investigation, but he wouldn't go so far as to say that there was no political bias whatsoever, and that's concerning the FISA court and misleading the FISA court. He can't come to that determination as of yet because he doesn't know. So that's what he communicated to the Senate Judiciary Committee. And I guess that's fair. You don't know what the intention was. If it was just to cut the corners and get it re-up because they felt like it was, they felt personally like it was warranted that they needed to keep monitoring Carter Page. I don't know. Could it have been political? They don't know. He doesn't know, and that's what he communicated. But the main thing, the most important thing about this, and the thing that contradicts the Trump narrative, is that there was no spying, there was no illegal spying on Carter Page or specifically the Trump campaign, and it was not started because of political bias.
I think the initial warrant, the initial application was approved in like 2013 or something like that.
It was a while ago.
So it was like 2.5 years before Trump even declared he was running for president. So now hey, that's his fault. That's Trump's fault that he brought this dude onto his campaign.
That's true.
That's Trump's fault.
Yeah.
But like, here's the thing: if they genuinely have a problem, right, with the FISA court, you know what they can do? You know what they can do, right? They can make some adjustments to the Defense Authorization Act. Mm-hmm. Did they do that? This how you know they're just barking for no reason. They're just trying to like offer some sort of deflection here. Because if they truly had a problem with it, Republicans and Donald Trump, right? Because that's what he was talking about at his rally. This shouldn't happen to any American. They're spying on my campaign and this blah, blah, blah. He's full of shit. Because they just passed the fucking NDAA. Didn't have any reforms in regard to FISA courts or surveillance. None. So you know he's full of shit. And the Defense Authorization Act that kind of broadened the scope of surveillance, Republicans approved of. Both Republicans and Democrats approved of. So again, all this wolfing and barking about FISA abuse is all feigned outrage. Because they approve of it. They just didn't think that it would touch them.
Yeah, it could be used against them.
It could be used against them. So if you want to talk about, surveillance and the overreach of the surveillance state, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But you know who shouldn't be talking about that? Republicans and most Democrats, and including Donald Trump.
That's right.
Because he would have addressed this before this most recent Defense Authorization Act was passed. Because that's what you do if you have a problem. You try to reform it, and none of them are. So you know it's some fake bullshit.
So you brought up the Trump rally. And so President Donald Trump was in Pennsylvania on Wednesday and had a rally. We kind of talked about that to open the show. And it was just another crazy rally, of course, and which, of course, the Michael Horowitz report, the IG report was going to come up. And it doesn't matter what the facts say. It doesn't matter what the IG report says. Now, conservatives have been... well, they've been waiting for this IG report for months now, and they have been signaling that there's going to be
arrests.
The perp walk and
heads rolling.
Nothing happened. Nothing like that happened, of course. Nothing like that happened. And of course, like we just conveyed to you, the report stated that there was no political bias to start the investigation. That doesn't matter to President Donald Trump. He's still going to communicate that. So he was still telling his base that, yeah, they were spying on us, this and that. You can't believe this. So upset.
You
so
know
upset.
what?
So upset.
You know what? Most campaigns get spied on. You know that, right? You do know that, right?
Yeah.
Most campaigns get surveilled in some kind of way.
Yeah. But, you know, Donald Trump is very special, though. So, you know, this has never happened before. And you can't allow it to happen again. But anyway, we don't have any footage of the rally. I didn't clip any footage. Actually, I did not see a lot of it. I saw some clips. I don't know that I can sit through like a significant part of a President Trump rally.
I think the only thing I can handle is
the clips. Yeah.
And if I'm interested and I feel compelled to like go further to see the context of what he said, for like if the clip doesn't give me that context, I may go look it up and look at it. But for the most part, it's just like
it's too much for me. It's too much. But we did see some words spoken at the rally by some Trump supporters, and so. This is some video that was compiled by CBS News, and you're going to see a few different Trump supporters talking about the impeachment of Donald Trump.
He's not going to be removed. He's not going to be removed. He's not going to be removed.
You feel confident in that?
Not by me. My 357 Magnum is comfortable with that. End of story.
And they remove him in the Senate. I think it'll cause physical violence in this country that we haven't seen since the first Civil War. I think it'll become the second Civil War.
I would think that there would be a strong movement. It would be very negative. Possible violence. Not that I'm condoning violence. There'll be a lot of mad Americans. Possibly 70, 80 million Americans on the loose, not very happy. What we're seeing is a divided country. Both sides are dug in. No one's budging. We have families tore apart. It's including my family. My daughters are liberal. I'm conservative. Now that this whole thing has been going on, we just had a problem at Thanksgiving. It's very unfortunate. I wish it never would have happened. This whole mess we're in.
Did he do something wrong? It doesn't appear to me that he did. But I think it's going to be very hard for people to change anyone's mind. If you're a Trump supporter, I'll speak for myself. As a Trump supporter, I believe him. And I don't believe that he's dumb enough to say something in front of all those people that would actually get him in trouble.
A lot of different points of view. I mean, they all feel the same way that he shouldn't be impeached. At least two of them were throwing it out there that it may come to violence if he. Actually, no, I said two. How can I forget the first one that pointed to his .357 Magnum?
My .357 Magnum says otherwise or something?
Yeah, well, he says he feels comfortable. In his .357. He's like, he's not going to get impeached. He said it like 3 times. And then the actual question was, are you confident in that? And he's like, well, my .357 Magnum is comfortable with that. So I don't know I don't understand who you're threatening. I don't understand who these, the second guy as well, talking about this may become the second Civil War. I'm not understanding, because look, I understand that these Trump supporters will be upset, because if this is the base of Trump supporters, I definitely appreciate that they will be very upset.
Based on who
Trump.
they are, you understand they will be upset if Trump got impeached or if he got removed or something came out to where he had to step down or whatever.
But I have some questions though.
You have questions.
I got some questions,
but
though.
Apparently, again, we don't know what footage they cut out,
No, yeah.
We don't know.
We don't know how.
But we both think
how
that
long those interviews went. Yeah.
Those interviews are incomplete. Now, why do you think they were incomplete?
Because again, I got questions, and I would think that anybody listening to that, if you're a reporter, whatever, I think you would have some questions as well. If there's going to be violence, are you talking about rioting? Because rioting is one thing, but when you suggest that this would become the second Civil War, we've kind of brought this up before.
Civil wars, what does that involve? That involves
governments.
Not just governments, but one side
and another side. At least two sides. At least two sides.
There's got to be two sides involved.
At least
in
two
a
sides,
war.
right? Yeah. So, and you would think that because we did have a civil war before, right? And it was between governments. You know, I mean, whole states left the Union. Whole states. Not like people. Not just like random people left states and it was like, we're starting a civil war. No, it was like whole states, right? Whole states and whole governments left the Union and then, started the Civil War. So the whole notion that regular ass people could start a civil war because they're mad, again, one, you don't have the arsenal to do anything like that. And then two, who are you going to start a civil war with? Who is going to be your target? Who are you going to be your targets? Because it's not going to be regular ass people that are going to be removing President Donald Trump from office. If it even gets to that point. If it comes to, the point that they're making, hey, if he gets removed, it's going to come with violence, right? Okay. Are regular ass people going to be behind that move? Citizens don't vote on impeachment and removal from office. So it would be the elected representatives. Are you saying that you're going to they're actually going to go storm the gates with their arsenal?
No. That's not what it sounded like to me.
The Civil War?
No. That's not what it sounded like to me. They're being very vague and kind of, they were being very disingenuous as to what they're actually talking about. Mm-hmm. They were not being upfront. And they have to be that way because it actually doesn't make sense just looking at the way they present it. Because that one guy, he said, cause physical violence. The situation.
His removal from office will
cause physical
violence.
Like, okay, how does that going to play out? That's why I wish, the people doing the interviews would have asked these people, okay, how does that play out? What are you talking about? How does this civil war take place? Number one. Number two, again, a civil war would involve two sides fighting willingly. Yeah. Two sides mad about something, fighting over something, right? Okay, this situation scenario involves Donald Trump being removed. Okay, that's the first step. Donald Trump is removed. Who is going to be mad? Who's going to be mad?
Trump supporters.
Trump supporters. Okay, why would non-Trump supporters want to fight because of this?
It's ridiculous.
So what?
It's crazy.
No. So what they're doing is they're being very they're being very vague about what they want or what they kind of desire to see happen, and that's targeting certain people because we know that they're not going to target representatives.
They're not going to target police.
They're not going to target.
They're not going to target the military.
So they're just using the word civil war in place of indiscriminate outrage. That's exactly what all of them are talking about it. They're not saying that because they know how it would sound, but that's what they mean. Because it doesn't make sense because who is going to be mad? They're going to be mad. So they're just using terms like civil war. It's going to be a second civil war as kind of a replacement word for what they see as their own indiscriminate outrage that's going to be taken out on random people, which I don't know what they're going to do. How are you going to
look? When
how's that going to play out? I'm just looking. I'm going to look for people who I think don't like Trump,
yes.
Or I'm going to be
hey, what do you think?
What do you think?
Get out my face.
Yeah. Did you agree with the impeachment? Huh? Did you agree with it? I'd be yeah, I believe. Pow! What? How's that gonna look?
Hold on. When the first Civil War started, again, this was a coordinated.
All right, John Witherspoon, coordinate.
This was a coordinated effort. Okay. Again, we're talking about whole states, the government. Okay.
Armies.
Yeah, armies. Arsenal. All
military,
of that.
Yeah.
Military. All of that. All right. They didn't. Of course, the land didn't leave, but still, they left in, I guess, spirit or whatever. They left, right? And they fought together as one. Now, what's going to be the coordination from these outraged Trump supporters? What's going to be the coordination? Where are you going to hit?
Not only that. Not only that.
Where are you going to hit?
That's again. This is why we thought this reporting was quite incomplete. There are a lot of questions that we have, like who's going to get hit, where is going to get hit. Are these mugs going to just quit their jobs? These mugs going to quit their jobs?
Man, yeah, because they would have to. I mean, if they're going to be active in a war.
And there's going to have to be some coordination, right? Coordination.
Have to be.
So most of that coordination will probably have to be electronic. Probably over some kind of network.
And usually when stuff like that happens, right? Usually when there's like this coordinated plan of attack.
What is that called? That's called terrorism.
Yeah. And you know what? Now, not to say that we don't see acts of terrorism inside the United States of America, domestically. Not to say that we don't see it, because of course we do. But a lot of these proposed acts of violence, these organized terroristic plots, get foiled. they get foiled.
Use the word foiled.
Yeah, and they get foiled by who?
Law enforcement.
Law enforcement. That's right. That's what I was.
So again, okay. So now that's the other obstacle right there. So they would have to, I guess, they'd have to suspect that law enforcement won't get involved. Law enforcement is just gonna fall back.
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
What again? Not even if it's obviously they have to be the aggressors in this case, right? They have to be because they're the only ones that are mad. Yep. But let's just say it does play out, and there are two willing, sides fighting. In that case, law enforcement would still have to just not get involved, regardless of how it would play out.
Yep. This is so ridiculous. And one other point, the last person to speak in that video that you saw there, the woman, she didn't actually, she told the truth, but she was being a little evasive, especially at the beginning, because she started by saying that she didn't believe it appears that President Donald Trump did anything wrong. And then as she went on towards the end, she says, I don't think he's dumb enough to actually do something that would jeopardize his presidency. That's two different things right there. That's two different things. Because you want to believe, she wants to believe that he wouldn't do something so stupid. She's not actually looking at the details, the facts. She's not looking at that whatsoever. It could be staring her right in the face, and she's just gonna be saying, no, this has got to be something else, because I support him. And I know that the person that I support wouldn't do something so stupid, so I'm just gonna put that down. That's not real.
No. She's telling herself.
Oh,
she's saying that she's looked at enough. She's looked at enough to know that he did something or could have done something, but doesn't want to believe he did it because she doesn't want to believe that he would destroy his own presidency like that and destroy her own loyalty to him, because that's essentially what would happen. Because if Trump is gone, she has nobody to just cling to.
This is not objectivity. This is not objectivity, and that's really where it started. It doesn't appear he did anything wrong. You're not being objective when looking at the details and the facts. You're not being objective. All you're seeing is that this is my guy, and I can't go there to believe that he would actually do something so stupid and so reckless and so irresponsible. No, I won't believe it. All right. All right. A few more things. We got a little bit of time. A few more things. So, some news broke yesterday on Wednesday. Okay. On Wednesday, in an overwhelming bipartisan effort, the House of Representatives passed the $738 million National Defense Authorization Act, which is a defense policy bill that would establish a Space Force as the newest branch of the U.S. military. The bill passed by a vote of 377 to 48. Now, if you're thinking, 377 of 48. That means that the party in the majority, which is the Democratic Party, would have had to vote overwhelmingly in support of this NDAA and creating the Space Force. And they sure enough did. They actually did. Now,
it has been proposed in the past. So it's been like proposed. This kind of this, I would say, loose scaffolding.
Yes.
Like kind of like the idea was there. It's kind of like they floated the idea before. So this is not kind of new.
No, it's not new, but when it was floated, it did not seem as though the Democratic Party was supportive of that possible initiative. There was no signal that they were going to be supportive of it. But what got them to agree to such ridiculous nonsense? Well, they got something in return. So by agreeing to create the Space Force as the sixth branch of the U.S. military, Republicans agreed to provide 12 weeks of parental leave for federal workers. And also this bill repeals the widow's tax, which is essentially a tax on military survivor benefits. So that's what the Democratic Party got. That was their get. And there were some words, I can't remember exactly what Democratic representative said it, but there was some words about how this is a historic bill and it is the most progressive defense policy bill ever passed in Congress. I didn't say it. Those are not my words. Not my words.
That is some horse shit. Like, because there was what? It's okay. Here's a piece of lint.
Yep.
There's a piece of I lost it.
Yep,
I lost it.
Is that easy?
It's that easy because you can lose. I'm trying to find another piece of lint. It's that nothing.
Yeah.
So whatever piece of lint that I did lose, that I did have in my hand, you probably couldn't see it anyway.
Well, hold on. I may have read this wrong because when I talked about the providing 12 weeks of parental leave, that wasn't just for federal workers. That was for everybody, right? That's for everybody. So that actually is a much bigger get. It's for everybody, right?
Yeah. Everybody.
It's for everybody?
Everybody. Yeah. That's what you said, right?
No.
Oh, so it's just for federal employees like them?
I mean, good.
It's good. We're not poo-pooing on that.
No. It's good.
But it just seems like it's weird how strange how they're benefiting. You know what I'm saying? But let's just say that is progressive somewhat. This little grain of sand or a little lint, right? Mm-hmm. That don't mean shit. Like, if you're talking about the Defense Authorization Act and the budget, right? Like that, this doesn't become progressive because there's like a something that we can look at and say, oh, that one good thing that somehow
it doesn't benefit us.
Yeah,
it doesn't benefit us, regular people.
It erases the monstrosity of the bill.
You know how, especially progressives, when progressives are questioned by the media, reporters, they are always asked, how are you going to pay for that ambitious plan of yours? That proposal you got? How are you going to pay for that? How is that going to get done? $738 million. No,
billion.
Is it billion? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I said million. That's my bad. 738 billion? Is that what it be? Do we have to fact check that? Check that?
It might be billion.
Because I'm just gonna make sure.
No.
Billion.
It's billion.
So we had to fact check that just to make sure, because I mean 738 million would still be an awfully large get, but
not for our military.
No. But $738 billion.
I don't know. I don't know, man. Man, a Space Force seems so intriguing, man. Seems so intriguing. Seems like something that could, blast us off as a human race, man.
Yeah.
Advance, man. Mm-hmm. Like, who doesn't want that? A Space Force. Maybe there's something else I want more.
We got $738 billion.
Yeah, got 700. Yeah, got a lot of money to play with. Maybe I'm trying to think. Because I'm trying to rack my brain to figure out what is out there now. What kind of policies are out there now that I would much rather want? Man, we might need y'all's help. I can't think of anything.
You know what's all the rage?
I think we need y'all's help.
You know what's all the rage, man? You know what's all the rage? And we see this in current Democratic presidential debates, too. There's one subject that always gets talked about towards the beginning of these debates. It never fails.
We might need y'all to refresh our memories, because we just can't think of anything else that, United States citizens could use that would help their lives
like every
out.
Citizen, man, woman, child, everybody, just every single citizen in the country. How about healthcare? Healthcare.
By golly, William.
That would be that.
I think you got it. You got it, man.
Dude, hold on. While I'm at it, how about like tuition? Wiping out the college debt, the trillions in college debt. I think this. That's billion. See, not million, but billion dollars. I think that would do a little bit. Because if you got money to spend, I'm just saying.
Also, Flint still ain't got no water.
Ooh.
Not just Flint,
but Flint
there's
is definitely a problem.
There's like more than a half dozen other towns and cities that have that same problem across the United States.
Need the infrastructure fixed, no doubt. Yeah, but you know what? Look, really, I'm gonna be serious for a second, man, straight up. Because look, I know we are, having fun with this and thinking about, what possibly could be done with the Space Force and how. Is that really relevant? Do we really need that?
Russia has one.
But see, and this is what I'm saying. That's why I gotta get serious, right? Because look, in all honesty, when you have characters like Loki, Hela, you got big ass Thanos running around like tearing up the galaxy and shit like that, man. Causing all this drama. You're gonna need a Space Force at some point. So kind of back off of Trump a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't got to just invent stuff to kind of hit them on. You know what I'm saying? This might be one of the first examples
we've seen
of a time where I am supportive of what he's got going on.
Look. We've seen Independence Day.
You know what I'm saying?
We've seen War of the Worlds. All right?
Did you see the
Did you see Signs? Did you see Signs?
Did you see the glove that Thanos had and just the? Did you see that? Oh, we're gonna need a Space Force. That's just what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, back up, come correct. You know what I'm saying? And scene. How'd I do? Did I convince you? I convinced you. Yes, I did. See, I'm trying to get on my acting game, man. I'm trying to open up an avenue. You know what I'm saying? Trying to work on the art. You know what I'm saying? I'm using y'all to kind of test my abilities. I don't know if I convinced anybody. I don't know if I convinced anybody. Actually, but if that was serious, if there was an actual big ass Thanos running around and all those other players in the game, whatever like that, whenever those godlike figures are tearing through stuff, you know what they easily dispatch of? Human-inspired defense systems. Easily.
Yo.
Easily. It's like nothing. It's like flicking an ant. So even in real life and fantasy, a Space Force doesn't make any damn sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense if you're trying to establish I guess, more of a stronghold on like people on the planet. More of a stronghold on the economies in certain countries. Surveillance state.
Oh yeah.
Broadening the surveillance state.
Right. It's embarrassing though, straight up. It's embarrassing that and this is where we get to some real criticism of the Democratic Party, because of course there is real criticism of the Democratic
Party.
Party.
188 Democrats joined the GOP.
So
for this very progressive.
So they didn't get
bill?
anything done on healthcare. Didn't get anything done on healthcare. They didn't get anything done on the border wall. I know that a judge in Texas, I believe, just blocked the military funds from being appropriated for that border wall, but they didn't get anything done on that. Nothing on the Dreamers. Nothing about the Yemen war that we're still involved in. Nothing about family leave, parental leave for everybody else. None of that. None of that was done. None of that was done for just your regular day citizens of the United States of America. But you got parental leave for the federal workers, though. And you got a Space Force. Good job, Democratic Party. Good job.
Like, in the face of impeachment right now, like, that's just mind-boggling to me. That's mind-boggling to me. I don't know how, you know, what are Democrats thinking in this case? Like, if they voted against it, they would have looked a certain way because that one thing was in there.
That one
no, I don't think so. Because
if
you were truly standing on your square and you were principled about it, and you were truly against, you know, this apparatus that, and for the most part, most people, most leftists think is detrimental to the world and domestically, you would want to curtail the power of this nation, right? You want to reel it in a bit, right?
You would.
If you were truly interested in free and fair elections and democracy, you would want to reel this in a bit. You wouldn't hand somebody like Trump, somebody you think is the most corrupt president in the world, more power, because he is essentially the executive here.
Yep.
Why would you hand him all this power?
Because, again, there are significant reasons for which the Democratic Party needs to be
that money,
criticized.
boy, that money means more to them, man. That money means more.
All right, so let's move on. Tuesday, December 10th, was Human Rights Day. And when it's Human Rights Day, of course, the government needs to recognize the importance of that day, and they need to make a statement. Maybe need to say something about it.
Maybe like some of the agencies may want to highlight it.
Of course, Human Rights Day. Let's highlight how important human rights are, especially in the United States of America. I think one agency probably shouldn't have talked, but here we go. On Twitter, ICE. ICE puts a tweet out on Human Rights Day. ICE honors Human Rights Day. And then, of course, Democratic presidential candidate Julian Castro retweets it with a message, delete your account, which I believe is appropriate. In the link that was the link that was connected to the tweet by ICE, again, they talked about the importance of human rights and how we have to stand up for that. And there was a quote from David Shaw, who is the Assistant Director for National Security. And so he said, the women and men of ICE dedicate themselves every day to protecting the dignity and human rights of people around the world. Through our work investigating perpetrators of genocide, torture, war crimes, and other violations of human rights, they are committed to seeking the prosecution and removal of human rights violators seeking refuge here. We will not allow the United States to be a safe haven for those who violate human rights. So, given that statement, I'm going to need all the ICE agents to promptly get up out the country. Just go. Everybody, even one of you got to go, because as you said, we will not allow the United States to be a safe haven for those who violate human rights.
So they're going to be investigating themselves, right? They're going to be reforming themselves,
They got
or
to
just
go.
completely just flushing themselves down the toilet?
Will not allow. Will not allow. You the wrong agency. You the wrong agency to speak on this. You know that. They know that. They know that. Look, not especially under this administration. Even though, of course, we saw the what happened at the border. We saw the family separations. We saw that. All right, the childhood deaths. We saw this, right? Children in cages. We saw all this. Not to say that in past administrations there weren't human rights abuses. Not to say that whatsoever. But right now we're dealing with this current administration. That's all I'm saying. Right now we're dealing with this current administration, and we're dealing with the words of an agency in this current administration, knowing the abuses that have been perpetrated by that same agency. And still they're able to make a statement like this.
Remember that little secret Facebook group where thousands of either former agents were being very, disrespectful, dehumanizing immigrants. So, had a bunch of like memes that were disrespecting AOC.
Right.
I forgot how big that group was. It wasn't just ICE agents. It was like a lot of other immigration officials as well that are part of that department. But that group was like, it was like 10 or 15,000, something like that. I could be wrong. It was so long ago. It was like 10,000 that group had in it, that Facebook group. And I think there's only like 60,000 that people that work for that agency. But they got to do that, though.
They have to.
That's more, that's PR. That's PR.
That's PR.
That's PR.
Again, I stand with the words of Julian Castro. Delete your account. A few more things. Trump. Going back to Trump. Well, actually, the last two stories about Trump. Trump can't get out the news, of course. Not that we're searching for it. He makes the news. He definitely does make the news. At a speech... Okay, hold on. Yeah. At a speech at the White House on Thursday, President Trump told yet another lie, which makes I don't know how many. I can't even keep count. This lie was about jobs in the U.S., the many, many jobs that have been created under his watch as President of the United States. But he took some time to be complimentary towards a particular individual, his daughter, Ivanka Trump. And so he congratulated her and her effort in this manner.
I want to thank Ivanka, and from the very beginning, it's true. Yeah. From the very beginning, it's been she has been so extraordinary in terms of her advocacy for America's working families. 14 million people she's gotten jobs for, where she'd go into Walmart, she'd go into our great companies and say, they really want help. They really want you to teach them, because the government can't teach like the companies can teach. And companies would take 500,000 people, 1 million people. And her goal when she started it 2 years ago was 500,000 jobs. She's done over 14 million, so that's really something. And
yo,
let me get. Doing too much. 14 million jobs is impressive.
No, she's
14 million jobs.
Because the way Trump made it sound, it was like Ivanka got like a magic wand.
Yeah.
Ivanka has a magic wand. She is like the fairy godmother of providing jobs.
Yes, she is the fairy godmother of job creation.
Job creation.
Yeah, she has a knack for this.
Yeah, she just goes to places like Walmart and says, "Hey, you gotta hire more people."
And I did it. Congratulate me, Daddy.
This. It's an obvious lie, but Ivanka knows it's bullshit.
Yeah,
like
my
old ass senile father has got me standing up here
and selling this bullshit on my behalf.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like, oh shit, like I'm roped into this now. It's like she knows it's not true.
Of course.
You know she's gonna have to answer questions about this, whether it be sooner or later. Like she's gonna be asked to explain this. It's not just Trump that's gonna be asked to explain themselves. Like, show us these numbers.
Yeah, he name dropped Ivanka.
Oh, he name dropped Ivanka. Name dropped a company too. Yeah. So what is that? 14 million?
14 million.
That's a lot of jobs.
So let's get into the numbers, okay? Because we can just say that it's a lie. I mean, anybody can say that it's a lie, but you know, we're not just gonna do that. We're gonna actually provide you with some information on it. So, since Donald J. Trump has taken office and he has served as the 45th president of the United States of America, there have been about 6.3 million jobs created. I'm talking about from the time he stepped into office until right now, there's been about 6.3 million jobs overall created. Now, according to the Labor Department, which is within the Trump administration, that is an actual agency, right? The Labor Department, that's government, right? That's government. Okay, so that's his labor.
So
department.
you're getting this information from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. Right. So according to the Labor Department, again, those 6.3 million jobs that were created under Trump in 33 months as president of the United States, are less than the approximately 7.4 million jobs created in the last 33 months under the former president, Barack Obama. And just to let you know how fair I am, most outlets are reporting that the number that has been created under President Donald Trump is actually $6.2 million. I mean, 6.2 million jobs. Now, it's actually 6.25 million. I saw the 5 and I rounded up to 6.3. So that was my commentary. I said 6.3 million. All right. Now, under Obama, it was those last 33 months in Obama's presidency, it was 7.38, I believe. 7.38. So I took that 3.8. I said, okay, 7.4. So I'm just trying to be fair to everybody.
You're trying to round down.
I'm just Well, so, I rounded up. That 5 rounded him up to a 6.3 million. So I'm fairer. I'm more fair than the outlets. I'm just and there's another part of here though. If I really want to be fair, if I really want to be fair, it is suspected. It's not official yet, but there was a sort of correction made, an adjustment made by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and it seems as though sometime soon that number, that 6.3 number, is actually going to go down by about 500,000. And it's actually going to be about like 5.7 million jobs. It was a correction that they made. It wasn't me. It was the Labor Department that did that. So sometime soon, it's going to start being reported that it was actually like 5.7 million jobs created. So if you take those numbers again, and then you take what President Donald Trump said right there on the microphone, on the hot mic, and he's repping his daughter, bigging up his daughter. 14 million jobs is more than the entire U.S. economy has created in terms of jobs.
Yo. Are you doubting the fairy godmother of job creation? You seem to be doubting her abilities.
I'm just not. Now, here's where there may be some I mean, look, Ivanka Trump is doing things, okay? She's doing some things, okay? So if you want to give her credit for some things that she is doing, okay, let's highlight that she does co-chair a board that works with private companies to create training opportunities for workers. She does do that, okay? I'm not going to deny that. And so when you create, millions of job training opportunities for people, that's good, because we know that if you get training opportunities and, that makes it so that you may be able to apply for higher skilled work and you can get, more pay, that's a good idea for everybody. So I don't want to poo-poo on this effort by her. No, it's a good effort. But according to the Washington Post, this effort has pledged to create training opportunities for 6.5 million workers over 5 years. So this was reported at the beginning of this year. I believe this was in February of this year that it was reported. So I'm not sure that they have already reached the 6.5 million workers. But I know they haven't reached 14.
But see, again, it's like, that's just training, though.
And that's just... Thank you for making that point. Thank you for making that point. So you're creating training opportunities for millions of people.
This is good.
Very good. Not poo-pooing that effort whatsoever. It's a noble effort. Good. Thank you. Thank you. But if you train 6.5 million workers, 6.5 million people, does it mean that you created 6.5 million jobs? Because they're still going to have to find jobs. They're still going to have to find jobs. And if they already have jobs too, maybe they went into another position at the company that they're already working for? Does that
count as creating a job if someone moved up?
I don't know.
Well, that would actually, but if it did, if that actually did count as creating a job, it would also count as vacating a job too.
Yeah, it would. It would.
But still, even that number is it's way below 14 million.
Way below.
Even if we say that's legit.
Even if you say that is actual job creation, it's not 14 million. So here is Trump just
because when you have nothing, you lie. That's right up Trump's alley.
It is.
He has a history of inflating his value all throughout his life.
Mm-hmm.
He has a history of doing that. But his companies
Poking out the chest.
These companies always
chest,
fail,
right?
though.
Yeah. That's why. But see, that's why there's nothing to his financial records, right? I mean, come on, there's nothing to that. Again, Donald Trump is a guy that likes to, show off his assets and bloviates and all these things. But hold on, that would be the opposite. That would be the opposite, because he does talk about how he is rich, and if you actually saw his financial reports, he's even richer than what you think he is. So why wouldn't he let everybody know how rich he is?
Maybe he's just setting it up for a big reveal, man.
A big reveal.
He doesn't want to just...
Big reveal.
Yeah, it's a big reveal.
Okay.
It's a big reveal.
Oh, well, I think it'd be a big reveal. In another way, I think it'd be a big reveal in another way. All right, so the last thing we're going to talk about, again, is President Donald Trump. Recently, President Donald Trump once again criticized Greta Thunberg, who is a 16-year-old climate activist. And this time, it was because Thunberg has just recently been named Times Magazine's Person of the Year for her work, trying to raise awareness, about climate change and the negative effects and trying to promote change. So Trump did not take that news very well, obviously. On Twitter, he remarked, "So ridiculous. Greta must work on her anger management problem, then go to a good old-fashioned movie with a friend. Chill, Greta, chill."
Greta has an anger problem?
Capital A, capital M.
The 16-year-old.
The 16-year-old.
Has an anger problem.
That's correct.
Trump is the cool cucumber. He's the coolest cucumber in the vegetable drawer.
Wearing them shades, just chilling, man.
But Greta, she has anger issues, and she needs to chill out.
Take it from Trump.
How old is Trump? Somebody tell me how old Trump is. 74,
He's definitely
76?
in his 70s.
How old is Trump?
Definitely in his 70s. I would say 76, but I'm not.
That sounds right. Maybe that's Biden, but that sounds right. I think he is 76.
Let's get that real quick. Hold on.
I know he's in the mid 70s or 70s.
He is no. I overshot it. He's 73.
73.
73 this year.
So it's 73-year-old man. 73-year-old president is flexing